Here's a pre-calculus on-ramps sample question. It says Jeff is stationed 10 miles due west of Carl in an otherwise empty forest in an attempt to locate an elusive Sasquatch. At the stroke of midnight, Jeff records a Sasquatch call 9 seconds earlier than Carl. Kai is also camping in the woods. He is 6 miles due north of Jeff, and he heard the Sasquatch 18 seconds after Jeff did. So this Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, I guess Sasquatch is the Indian name, is closer to Jeff than Carl and closer to Jeff than it is to Kai. If the speed of sound that night is 760 miles per hour, determine the location of Sasquatch. So this will be Jeff, this will be Carl, and that's going to be 10, so this is about 6. That's Kai. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but it's pretty close. I'll do what the class did in the notes. It called the center between Jeff and Kai, or Carl, 0, 0. So if this is 10, then this is 5, and this is 5. Jeff is 5 due west. So this is going to be 5, 0, and this is going to be negative 5, 0. If you wanted to, you could have set, say, Jeff up at 0, 0, and then called this 5, 0 and this 10, 0. It'll work out the same way. And now if Kai is 6 miles north, Kai is at negative 5, 6. And what's the point in between Kai and Jeff? Well, it's going to be negative 5, 3. It's halfway between. Okay. Now, Bigfoot can be, this is where the hyperbolas come in. Bigfoot can be here or here, but it's got to be closer to Jeff, so it's here. I'm going to put that one in red. In fact, but on this hyperbola, I don't want to make that one in red. On this hyperbola, Sasquatch or Bigfoot is somewhere on the red one. Here's, I'll draw Sasquatch. He's got a lot of hair. He's a giant, hairy creature. And here is Jeff. Jeff is smaller than Sasquatch. And here is Carl, also smaller than Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And here's Carl's son, his junior, Carl's junior. That's a joke. Okay, but anyway, so Carl could be on that one. And then on this one, this is the possible location of Sasquatch on this one. I don't know, it probably crosses somewhere over there. But, and this picture might not be accurate, but Bigfoot, Sasquatch has to be closer to Jeff than Kai. So it's got to be somewhere on, I should have, again, drawn this one in black. It has to be somewhere on the blue one. So I am not an artist. So Bigfoot's location, or Sasquatch, is where the blue and the red meet. The bottom part of the hyperbola between Jeff and Kai, and the left part of the hyperbola between Jeff and Carl. I'm just giving myself more room. So there's a concept with hyperbolas where if these are the foci, F1 and F2, and I take some point, this is just point P, then the distance between F2 and point P I can call D1. The distance between this other foci, the closer one in P, I'll call D2. And D is equal to the absolute value of D1 minus D2. That way, if you get them backwards, you got that absolute value. So make sure it's always a positive. If it comes out to a negative number, just drop the negative sign. So that's D. That's the difference of the distance between the one focus and a point and another focus and a point, and that equals 2A. You can look up how that thing works on your own if you would like, how to derive that formula. But that's 2A. What is A in a hyperbola? A is the distance between a vertex and the center. So I've got a lot of information. Let me see if I can come up with some of these, and I'll split this in half. This will be Jeff and Carl. This will be Jeff and Kai. I know that with Jeff and Carl, the center is at 0, 0. So center is 0, 0. I know C, by the way, is the difference from the center to the foci. That's to each one of the focuses. That's C, or the center to the foci, to each of the foci. So C, since the distance between Jeff and Carl is 10, then C equals 5. And C squared equals 25. So I've got that much. How do I can I find A? Well, yes, I can. Because remember, 2A equals the difference between those distances. In other words, it's the difference between the distance from a focus to some point, in this case the Sasquatch, minus the distance that focus on the other Sasquatch. And I have a relation, or not other Sasquatch, the other focus in the Sasquatch in this case. And I have a relation for that. I know a rate that sound is traveling, 760 miles per hour. And I know a time, the difference in the time between Jeff and Carl is 9 seconds. Remember, distance equals rate times time equals, the rate is 760, but that's in miles per hour times 9 seconds. How do I convert miles per hour into seconds? I multiply by 1 over 3,600. 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute. So that will get me miles per second times second. This is hours, this is second. Miles per second times second is miles. So that's going to give me that, and that's going to be the D. That's going to be the difference, because it's 9 seconds, is the difference in the distance between Carl and Sasquatch and Jeff and Sasquatch, and that equals 2A. And then I can find A, I just divide it by 2. So I get 760 times 9 times 1 over 3,600. 9 goes into 36.4. This is 760 over 400. That's 38 over 20, or 19 over 10. I'm just dividing by 2. That's 1.9. That's 2A. A is half of 1.9, which is 0.95. 1.9 divided by 2 is 0.95, and A squared, boy, I'm going to even need more room probably, is 0.95 squared. Let me find that over here. 0.95 squared equals 0.9025. Okay, very nice. So I have C squared and A squared. There's a relation, C, because remember, in order to write this equation, and in this case, I know it's a horizontal hyperbola, it's going to be x minus h squared over a squared minus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. And hk is the center, in this case, 0, 0. So it's just going to be x minus 0 is x squared over a squared. I already know a squared is 0.9025 minus y minus 0 squared, which is y squared over b squared. I don't know what b squared is. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. And now I don't have enough room to do this. I guess I'll just move this down. Gotta make this bigger to move it down enough. So I always run out of room on these things. Wait a minute. Now I can move it down. I need more room. I always need more room. Okay. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. And that means c squared minus a squared equals b squared equals. C squared in this case is 25 minus 9.025. What is 25 minus 9.025? Which is 0.95 squared, so I'll just put 25 here, minus that, 24.0975. So b squared equals 24.0975. And now let me pull this thing back up here. Whoops, I'll get it back near by moving it up like that. And so x squared over 9.9025, minus y squared over 24.0975 equals 1. So that's the equation for one of the hyperbolas. That's the horizontal. Here's JK. The center is negative 5, 6, negative 5, 0. I already said negative 5, 3. The C distance is 3. From the center to each one of the foci is 3. So C is 3. C squared equals 9. I use the same thing. D is RT, so I use 760 miles per hour times, this time it's 18 seconds is the difference, times, so I'm going to get, that the difference between one person in the Sasquatch and the other person in the Sasquatch, that's that little d, which is 2a, times 18 times 1 hour over 3,600 seconds, so I'm going to convert that 760 miles per hour to miles per second. 18 goes into 18 once, into 36 twice. So this is little d equals 2a equals 760 over 200. Well, this side was 760 over 400. It's 1.9. This is twice that, so it's 3.8. It's divided by half as much, so it's twice as big. And that means a equals 3.8 over 2, which is 1.9. A squared, well, I need 1.9 squared, is 3.61. And b squared again is c squared, which is 9, minus a squared, minus 3.61, which equals 5 point something. Remember, it's c squared, which is 9, minus a squared, which is 5.39. Oops. Now, I don't remember if I mentioned this already. The question, or this example at the end, says if you do not use a graphing calculator or technology, then you have to set up simultaneous equations of a nonlinear system and use matrices to solve it. Well, it's very tedious to do that. I don't think a pre-calculus class wants you to do that. It's just mentioning that's what you could do if you don't use a calculator. So this equation is going to be, remember that now this is the vertical one, so the y goes first. This is y minus 3 squared over a squared, which is 3.61, minus x minus h, which is, where's h? X minus negative 5 minus x plus 5 squared, it equals 1, and that's divided by 5.39. So there's a video, I'll put a video in the description showing how to graph hyperbolas on a TI-84 family calculator. If you have the Conic app, then you can just pull up hyperbola in the Conic, press app, Conics, and then go to hyperbola and put it in there. But I'll post a video. And so now I'm just going to put these two in Desmos and see what happens. So this is x squared divided by 0.9025 minus, this is y squared divided by 24.0975 equals 1. And then this one is y minus 3 squared divided by 3.61 minus x plus 5 squared divided by 5.39 equals 1. And in this system, now again, remember that they're going to cross in the left and then the lower. Of the horizontal, it's the leftmost side, the left side, and then the vertical, it's the bottom. So this is the one I'm looking for, and that says negative 0.96289, negative 0.96289 0.89, comma, and it's negative 0.81129. Negative 0.81129. That's the coordinate, but from 0, if I want to count it from 0, 0, it's going to be 0.96289. Negative is west, and then it's going to be 0.81129. Positive is north, negative is south, so south. So from the origin, it's 0.96289 west and 0.81129 south. If I want to know from Carl, Carl is at, where's Carl again? Carl's at negative 50. If I want to count it from Carl, I have to take the absolute value of negative 5 minus negative 0.9629. Negative 5 minus negative 0.9629. And so that's 4.037. So from Carl, it's 4.037. And notice it's to the right. Sasquatch is to the east. So that's 4.037 east. And it's still 0.81129 south. So to get to Sasquatch from Carl, I would have to go around 4 miles east and 0.8 miles south. But that's how you work that one.